Okay, so in this video we begin to look at some examples of factoring polynomials of that form, x squared plus bx plus c. And so if you haven't yet, please watch the first video where we introduce the idea of what we're going to do. So as we begin here, we recall that we're going to look for things that multiply to be the number term and add to be the middle term. Now, if at any point you're stuck and can't figure out the pair of numbers that you're looking for, one thing you can do is start looking at a list of factors, things that multiply to be 42. Now, this particular one I've chosen probably is one that you'll be able to kind of look at, and most of you would get the pair of numbers right off the bat. But let's just show you the process. We begin with 1 in the number. They don't work. We technically have to consider negative numbers as well. Now 1 and 42 add to be 43, but notice here if we use negative numbers, the sign on the things that they add together to be just changes. So we can really disregard negatives unless we need them, unless we need to have the sign change on what they add to. So we come up 2 and 21, that's 23, still not what we want. 3 and 14 add to be 17. We're getting a little closer. 4 doesn't go into 42. 5 doesn't go into 42. Until finally we get 6 and 7, which add to be 13. That's the pair we want. And again, using this process, once we find those two numbers, we can then actually just write out our factors. So we can write this out as x plus 6 and x plus 7. We can do it really quickly. Okay, so let's move on to our second example. Okay, so our next example is x squared minus 4x minus 32. So again, we're going to look for things that multiply, in this case to be a negative 32, and add to be a negative 4. Now because they multiply to be a negative 32, that tells us that one of our two numbers is going to be positive, and one of our two numbers is going to be negative. So you may want to pause the video to take a moment, see if you can figure out the pair of factors you need. Okay, so if you've already come up with the answer, please bear with me for a moment. Here I have negative 1 and 32. They add to be 31. Not what I want. Negative 2 and 16 add to be 14. Still not what I want. 3 doesn't go into 32. 4 does 8 times. I get negative 4 times 8. Excuse me. Those add to be 4, but we actually need negative 4, so we take the signs on those two numbers and we change each of them, and that will give us the pair of factors that we need. Okay. And so once we again find the pair of factors we need, we can then just write it out. But really, this is the process. It's going to be solving this kind of arithmetic puzzle, if you will, is how we factor these polynomials. Numbers that multiply to be a certain number, add to be another. And if you're stuck, I really encourage you to list out the factors. That way you make sure you don't miss any. Okay, so let's move on to a third example. Our third example is x squared minus 17x plus 60. So again, we're looking for things now that multiply to be 60 and add together to be negative 17. So again, please pause the video. Take a couple of minutes now and try to work this problem out on your own. It's best to try this, and then you can always, of course, go back to the video if you really are stuck. Pair of numbers, if you're now ready for that result, that we need in this case are a negative 5 and a negative 12. This is always the kind of problem, once you see the answer, it's like, oh, that's obvious. Okay, but it is, take your time to go through your list of factors till you find the pair that works. If you were listing these out, you would have came across 5 and 12. They had to be 17, but we needed to be negative 17, so we changed the signs. And again, once we find that pair of factors, we can write out our answer. X minus 5, X minus 12, or if you wanted to write it the other way, X minus 12 first times X minus 5. Okay, so hopefully this helps you out as you begin to work with factoring. In the next video, we're going to take this just a little bit further, look at a few more things with factoring these polynomials. Until then.